So the Department of Public Enterprise is hoping an equity partner will be secured before the end of March. But the flight path, as Heidi was reporting, for SAA remains really uncertain. Massive debts still to settle, a global aviation sector hard hit by COVID-19. I'm joined now by aviation expert Des Latham. Good evening, Des. Always great to chat to you. So most business rescue processes take around 3 months. This one has taken about 14, I understand. So who's to blame? Is it absolutely the fault of the business rescue practitioners, or is there more to it?
The pandemic. So, I mean, you've got to look at this and say, yes, the normal approach is around 3 months, and by law, by the way, and if it changes under the Companies Act, you have to have an extension agreed to by all parties, particularly the creditors. And that has happened over the year because, of course, it's government involved, and the biggest banks are underwritten into the billions. So you can see that there's an agreement in principle to extend this. And the pandemic, of course, has caused what is this week was called by IATA chairperson Dajuniak, he called it a catastrophe. So it's the worst that aviation has ever seen. It's worse than any war.
But I don't understand, Des, how a pandemic affects the business rescue process, because you can carry on business during a pandemic on Zoom and Skype and through phone calls.
Well, apparently, you know, during this process at the start of it, there was a lot of pressure placed by the unions and others on management to actually have meetings and so on. And they went to the CCMA at the start of this process, if you remember, last year, to say that they hadn't been advised of the changes being taken. And also in 2019, they began to take this kind of legal action. So there's been a long road of negative kind of commentary and also pressures building up on all sides. But I have to say that it's not like you can do this on Zoom. The way that airline makes its money is to fly. It's like a trucking company. If the wheels are not on the road, it's not making money. You can't just put an airplane on the ground and expect to make money. So all the airlines that have been flying around Southern Africa, and there's a list, including their own partner, Mango, have been able to pay the pilots and pay for fuel, which are the two costs, and not the biggest. The fuel is by far the biggest, 70%. So you can see that when a business it cannot operate, it's like restaurants in the tourism industry. They've shut down the only way they can make money. The CAA, by the way, has a 98% reduction in income. The CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority, is in big financial difficulty. They manage all of us. I'm a pilot. I've just got my license from the CAA, my 12th year of flying. And the operation there is in financial difficulties, bad financial difficulties. So it's not like any other business rescue process, no.
Right. So it's not entirely fair to say the business rescue practitioners should have sorted this out sooner. As you explain, you know, salaries could have been paid if there wasn't a pandemic. But nonetheless, we know that SAA's problems have been with us for many, many years. There is now despair. If you watch Heidi's package, there's despair from employees. People are absolutely desperate, really, really in a terrible situation, economically and emotionally. The pilots have been, it seemed, completely locked out. And at the same time, the Department of Public Enterprise is saying, well, the business process rescue is going to wrap up end of Feb. By March, we'll have an equity partner. Are they living in cloud cuckoo land?
You know, there's a political decision. So looking at this as an analyst and as a pilot and someone who works in science and not magic, it's insane. You have to say that people involved in this process later, when you look back, there are going to be many, many questions asked about fiduciary decision-making and also political decision-making. What has happened is that NUMSA does not, it's Dr. No of the 21st century. If you remember Dr. No, the Stichter Nationale Partij, leader of apartheid. Everything is no. The pilots themselves, they realized that there was a problem growing because SAA, look at the numbers on pilots. There were over 800 pilots in 2010. There's 380 now. Now, anyone looking at a business like that, that's not transformation. That's not development. We've gone backwards in terms of SAA. So the whole company, the whole operation has been grinding itself down. And you can point fingers in many directions, and you have to point it at the now delinquent director, Dudumieni, who oversaw some of the collapse of that airline. It's still waltzing around, you know, down in KZN at the Mhlatuzi waterboard and so on. You know, this is a big problem we have here, is that the accountability, there are many fingers being pointed constantly. Yeah. But, of course, there are 3 fingers pointing back every time someone does that.
Very quickly, how do you think this is ultimately going to pan out? If I had to ask you to put it into 1 or 2 sentences, how's it going to end?
SAA will go bankrupt. The creditors, the banks, will eventually eat humble pie because, of course, they're exposed. The government owns much money inside the banks and works with the biggest banks of South Africa. So they're going to have to accept they're going to take a haircut, and a big one. And SAA will no longer function. The jobs will move some into Mango and some into the other airlines. And the airlines that are signing deals with the Emirates, such as Airlink, will continue to operate internationally and locally.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. Much appreciated. Aviation expert Des Latham there.